This Patriot Day, most anyone who is alive remembers where they were when they first heard the news that America was under attack by terrorists on September 11th. Those attacks took the lives of nearly 3,000 Americans in New York, Washington, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And since that fateful day, more than that number have died from 9/11 related illnesses. But as often happens, tragedy spurs so many to jump to action, to help, and to ensure that those left behind are cared for and our heroes are never forgotten. And one of the biggest advocates for our veterans and first responders and their families has been actor, humanitarian, and the founder of the Gary Sinise Foundation, Gary Sinise, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So first, Mr. Sinise, tell us how 9/11 impacted you and how it really kind of spurred on this higher calling to serve those who serve our country.
Well, many years ago, I started supporting veterans in various ways, going back to the 80s. Vietnam veterans in my family started supporting locally in the Chicago area, just doing various things to support local Vietnam veterans groups. And then about 10 years later, playing the Vietnam veteran in Forrest Gump, Lieutenant Dan Taylor, I got involved with our wounded veterans. Lieutenant Dan, of course, was a wounded veteran, and that led me to an association with the Disabled American Veterans Organization back in 1994. And so along the way in the 80s and 90s, through various efforts, I was supporting the men and women who serve our country. And then along comes this terrible, terrible day of September 11, 2001, when we were attacked and people all over the country started raising their hand to go and serve. And I wanted to raise my hand as well. I just was terribly heartbroken, like so many of us. And I remember the Friday after the Tuesday of September 11th, President Bush had called for a national day of prayer. And the churches and houses of worship all over the country were just packed to the gills. And I was standing room only in this little Catholic church. And I remember the priest saying this had been a tough week. And that was the first words out of his mouth. People were crying. It was very emotional, a lot of praying going on. And I somehow just felt called to serve. And I heard this message somehow. I don't know if he said it or not, but that service was a great healer. And my heart was broken and I wanted to do something. So I raised my hand and started volunteering wherever I could to support the men and women who were serving our country. I started visiting the war zones and the hospitals. I started supporting multiple nonprofits all across the country, and that all manifested itself into the creation of the Gary Sinise Foundation to serve and honor the needs of the men and women who defend us and protect our cities.
Yeah, talk to us about what the Gary Sinise Foundation actually does to support them.
Well, because I was volunteering for so many different types of organizations prior to creating my own foundation, I learned a lot about various needs. I was supporting Gold Star family initiatives. I was supporting home building for our wounded. There was entertainment. I was taking my band all over the place to the war zones and raising money with the band and trying to help so many different types of organizations that when I created my foundation, I remember sitting with the people that were, filling out the legal papers, and they said, "What's your mission, your one thing going to be?" And I just said, "Well, we're going to do this, 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 and this." And it was a number of things because that's what I had been doing prior. So if you go to GarySiniseFoundation.org, you'll learn a lot more about all the various programs and initiatives that we're involved in.
Mr. Sinise, just last week, your foundation launched a new honor roll initiative where families can preserve their loved one's legacy for the future. Talk to us about this new initiative.
That is just a way for us to salute and pay tribute to men and women all over this country and allow our supporters and people that go to GarySiniseFoundation.org to salute and pay tribute to family members and friends themselves. If you go to GarySiniseFoundation.org, you'll see the honor roll on there, and you can sign up. You can fill out any number of individuals who have served our country, and we will honor them on our honor roll. They get a private message, a personal message from me, because I care about the men and women who served our country. That's why I started my foundation. I have a marvelous, wonderful team. We're working 24/7 to deliver the goods, and we want to make sure that we always remember the men and women who serve our country.
One final question for you, Mr. Sinise. 9/11, obviously a horrific tragedy, but it did bring the country together perhaps like no other time since World War II. A lot of folks see that level of unity and patriotism fading now. How do you think we recapture that as a nation?
I think there's a disconnect between many of our citizens and our defenders. Unless you have a personal relationship with somebody who's serving, a family member or a friend, or you know veterans, or first responders, you may not have as much of an appreciation for what they do as somebody who comes from a family of service members.
Right.
I have veterans in my own family. I know that a lot of my work begins with veterans going back to World War I. My grandfather and my two uncles, World War II. My dad was in the Navy during the Korean War, and then on my wife's side, Vietnam veterans, Cold War, Afghanistan. So a lot of veterans in my family, but many people don't have that. Right. So I've found my way of doing things is just by shining a light on the men and women who serve our country and trying to help people understand why it's important to support our defenders. All right. And if that's the way that I can help that gap, then I'll continue to do that.
Well, those are terrific words, particularly on a day and a weekend like today. Gary Sinise, you become a hero for so many of our heroes, and thank you so much for all you do and for being here today.
It's my pleasure. And can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Real quick? Right now, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. Last night, I was at Moody Air Force Base playing for the troops. We did a great concert there. And right now, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, with the Medal of Honor Convention. And I've been privileged to be a part of the Medal of Honor Society and the foundation since 2007. I'm emceeing the gala convention here we have about 35 Medal of Honor recipients here at the convention. It's going to be a great privilege. Wonderful to be back here.
Oh, that's true. I was actually, because I live in Knoxville, and I was just in the airport, and they have a beautiful display of all of the Medal of Honor recipients. And thank you so much for supporting that program as well. I appreciate you being here, sir. Thank you.
God bless. Thank you.